Today, the topic is going to be on accreditation and the quality improvement. I think today we are talking more about the accreditation when it comes for the quality part of the institutions. And new education policy also talks about the quality, and also they talk about the different confirmation of the university status is again basically based on the accreditation. So we have a set of accreditation institutions and accreditation standards, accreditation policies. As far as the business schools are concerned, of course, in India, AICTE, predominantly AICTE through NBA, National Board of Accreditation, they accredited the business schools on programs, and our NACS also accredits the institutions. If a particular institution offers MBA program, they also accredit the institution. These are the two important accrediting agencies in India. Apart from that, there are 5 leading internationally recognized accrediting agencies, starting from WACSB, EFMD, and of course AMBA, ACBSB, IQFSC, and then of course we also have our regional accrediting agency, that is our AMDISA's accrediting agency. So basically international we have 5, and of course our AMDISA's 1, 6, plus our local 2 accrediting agencies. I'm very happy to report to all of you that last 10 years, our institutions, management schools are very active in international collaboration. Now we have almost more than 100 institutions are internationally accredited by either EFMD or WACSB or AMBA or ACBSB. So SACS also very active. I think MR was getting the SACS accreditation earlier, and the quality standards are also very good. So now this accreditations brings some kind of quality standards for the institution, and also it helps us benchmarking in the institution. And we have a person who involved in accrediting agency almost more than 3 decades. And when Professor MR was heading the Indian School of Business, WACSB was accredited. He was very active in all international accrediting agencies, and he was also involved in NB accreditation. So he is the right person to talk about generally about accreditation and how accreditation helps the quality improvement. So this is what today we are going to discuss. And I request all of you to join every Wednesday, 3 to 4 o'clock, and also request all your faculty colleagues to join. I think this is going to be a great experience for all the faculty members. And I'm happy that Professor M.R. Rao is the first inaugural speaker for this knowledge sharing session organized by Association of Indian Management Schools. On behalf of AIMS, I'm happy to welcome Professor M.R. Rao and all the participants for this program. I hope this program will give you a lot of insights in the different aspects. And I also look forward to your feedback about the program and also the topics, the kind of topics which you will be interested. With this introduction, I hand it over to Professor M.R.
Okay, good afternoon to all. It's nice to see so many logged in. So the title of my talk is Accreditation and Quality Improvement in B schools, but I'll be mostly talking about accreditation, not specific to any particular accreditation, although I will talk a little bit about it, not too much. If you have any questions, of course, feel free to put it in the chat box. I'll be happy to answer them. So before we get into accreditation as such, I want to talk a little bit about quality parameters and some measurement issues. What some of the other things that one can be doing also I'll be talking about, and then I'll get into accreditation. Quality parameters, measurement issues, and accreditation is what I'm going to be talking about. Then let me go to the third one. These are the stakeholders. Can you see this slide, Nandagopal?
Yes, sir. We could see, sir. Everything. We are able to see everything.
Okay, good.
Yes,
so, Board of Governors, Director, Faculty, Director or Dean, because the US system, they're called, the top position is Dean, and the Indian system it is Director. Okay. And we, of course, faculty, students, parents are a little bit, I would just say students, alumni, staff, recruiters. And sometimes people add society, but somewhere along you must draw a line, the stakeholders. Otherwise, you could have We'll be only talking about society and contributing to society. Okay. So what are the quality parameters that people look at? One is the governance. Governance means what is the vision and mission you have for the institute. Is the board of governors, director, faculty, students involved or not? Involvement of these stakeholders is very important as far as some quality rating agencies, such as the AACSB, for instance, place a lot of emphasis on governance, vision, mission, and involvement, and so on. Some others may be less, and so on. I'm not going to be getting into details of any particular accreditation, but you should keep in mind this is somewhat of a general topic, general talk on quality parameters and so on. So vision, mission is one important. Then I like to look at the whole institute as inputs, processing, and output. So the other thing we have to look at is students, whether how good the students are, what is the procedure for admitting students, and then if you have executive program, how many executive programs are you running, what is the number of participants, what kinds of programs are you running, and so on. Processing is of course programs and activities, and then the curriculum for the program, how good is your curriculum, how up to date is your curriculum, and faculty, do you have a lot of faculty with good academic background? Of course, in India, they're talking more about with PhDs, although AICT is now relaxed to some extent. So faculty with PhDs, without PhDs, faculty with industry experience, and so on. Administrative support is an important aspect. In India, typically, what was some time back, maybe 15, 20 years ago, administrative support was very little, and only the faculty used to do a lot of administration. But over the years, people have come to realize that administrative support is best to give it to some administrators, who are not necessarily academics, and faculty time is better devoted to doing research and teaching. Of course, few of them, such as deans and say department heads and so on, would have to do some administrative work. But the idea is to reduce the administrative work of the faculty, get administrators, corporates, or people with who have a lot of experience in the administrative aspects. So that is the trend now. And then, of course, the facilities, you have library, computers, labs, classrooms, and so on. Other facilities we are equally important, living, if you're a residential school, residential institute, living facilities become important. Food and recreation facilities also, sometimes people ignore that, but if you're in a big city, to provide recreation facilities may be difficult. So what is the output of the institute? Graduating students, participants, how good are they? What are the jobs they are getting? And you're looking at research publications of the faculty. They may be writing books, case studies, publications in popular media, workshops, seminars, patents, if they are holding any patent, although in the management schools, patents are very limited, and what sort of consultancy projects they are doing, and social responsibility in terms of what they are contributing to community. So these are some of the stakeholders, are the work that you think of the institute as having some inputs, some processing, some output. And we'll talk about the quality parameters and so on. But one of the problems in arriving at these parameters, qualitative and quantitative parameters you can have. Sometimes it's difficult to assess some of the qualitative parameters, but it is necessary. Now, what some of the institutes do is do some benchmarking internally. It's not accreditation, but I'm looking at the topic more from point of view of having a quality improvement in the institute, not just accreditation. So quality improvement for an institute means you benchmark yourself with some other institutes, comparable institutes, how well you are doing. So you can do an internal review, self-assessment or department group-wide, and see how each department is doing and so on. Now, how often do you do this is important. There's no fixed rule, but self-assessment periodically is a good idea. But if you do too often, you'll be spending most of your time doing only assessment and not doing the work. Because these assessments have to be done by the faculty and a lot of time and effort will be required. So you don't want to do too often, but at the same time, you don't want to postpone it too long. So maybe 4 to 5 years. There's no rule that it should be 4 to 5 years. Some may do 3 years, some may take 5 years or 6 years and so on. Other thing which is not done, even going back, internal reviews in India, I find seldom they do that. Abroad, they do that more. In India, institutes don't do internal reviews. I think it's important. They should know how well they are doing, but assessed by the faculty themselves. Then you can also talk about peer reviews, which again in India is not done, but abroad they do that. You have outside faculty come, and this maybe include industry experts, advisory boards, and so on, come and review the institute. See, when I talk about reviews, remember we talked about inputs, processing, and output. Those are, you say, students, faculty, and programs, and then output is graduating students. And each of those has different parameters. You can look at students, quality of students, and what the background, whether you have a sort of only engineers or you have sort of more wider representation of the other graduates as well. So whether there's a gender equality and things like that you can look at. So, and processing, of course, as I said, is the faculty, how good the faculty are and so on, and teaching programs and so on. And the output is the students and how good the jobs are and so on. So the peer reviews, the idea of outside faculty is they'll be much more objective. One of the problems with internal review is everybody may say we are doing good and so on. There's a tendency that you're good, I'm good, and that kind of thing. Outside faculty will be much more open and much more frank about the reputation of the institute and so on. And they may include industry experts and so on. How often? Again, you don't want to be doing all this too often, maybe 8 to 10 years. There's no fixed rule on how often. Some may do it every 6 years, some may do only 10, 12 years and so on. Peer reviews, this again, as I mentioned, is not done in India. So this is about accreditation, benefits of accreditation. Top one is getting hidden. I don't know how to get rid of this. Okay. So what is accreditation and what are the benefits? Accreditation is assurance of quality. In fact, assurance of quality can be defined in different ways. This is that's where different accrediting agencies differ. For instance, AACSB is assurance of quality is your vision and mission. That should be reasonable. You can't have a very low kind of vision and mission. Just saying, I'll just teach students who are admitted from my city, and that is my vision is only to teach those students. That would not be an acceptable vision and mission. As long as the vision and mission are acceptable, then quality is conformance to your vision mission. Your activities should conform to what you're saying you want to do and whether you're actually doing that. In India, it's always the case that, we want to be the best in the world institute. I know one institute where I was talking to them, they had that kind of a vision or statements pasted all over, not all over, in some parts of the institute. So, and they were going in for AACSB accreditation. I said, you better be careful, you remove some of those, because if the AACSB people come and you see, they say that your mission or you're stating that you want to be the best in the world, they'll come and ask you, what are you doing towards that? So, we in India get away with our mission statements, very laudable statements, but not necessarily taken seriously, and not doing enough activities that will promote the vision and mission that you have stated. So if you get accredited, what it says is an institution of the program. You can have institutional accreditation, program accreditation, and so on. And whether if you have accreditation, it says meets or exceeds the specific standards and criteria. In India, it's typically some standards and criteria are mentioned, whereas AACSB will look at your vision, mission, whether you are your activities are geared towards accomplishment of the vision, mission, and so on. So it's a commitment to quality, and generally accreditation says you are committed to quality and continuous improvement. And you will also be saying you'll advance knowledge through scholarship. So that means you'd have to do some research, maybe publications, maybe case writing, maybe books and manuscripts and so on. So accreditation recognizes that you are satisfying or exceeding the standards. So it also provides comparison with other comparable schools and benchmarking I talked about. Accreditation agencies will look at, some of them look at who are your competing institutions or who are your comparable institutions, and they will do some sort of a benchmarking comparison and so on. So it promotes improvement of institutions and the profession in general. And more importantly, it also provides information to market, saying that if you are accredited, that means you're meeting some standards and so on. Not accredited, maybe because you're not meeting the standards, or maybe you just haven't bothered, but at least people will be worried about it. And they have to find the reason why you're not accredited. Accreditation provides information, makes it easy to attract students and so on. Especially if you're going in for collaboration, international accreditation will help you in that. Okay. So you have some of the accrediting systems. You have the National Board of Accreditation, NBA, National Assessment and Accreditation Council, NAC, ABET, earlier known as Accreditation Board for Engineering and Technology. That's mostly for engineering and technology. And AACSB, of course, is a popular international one, but it takes a lot of effort, a lot of time it takes, and cost also. Association to Advanced Collegiate Schools of Business. It's interesting, AACSB used to be American Association of Collegiate Schools of Business, but when they went international, they could not keep themselves as American Association. So they changed the expansion of the first two words. It's Association to Advanced Collegiate Schools of Business. EQUIS is a popular one, a European Quality Improvement System. The emphasis, as I mentioned, AACSB is about vision, mission, whether you are delivering or whether your activities are geared towards your vision and mission. EQUIS places quite a bit of emphasis on internationalization. Unfortunately, it's a European base, so since they're different countries, they become, they're more internationally focused. I was telling them once that, look, in Europe, if you go 20 miles away, you're in a different country and so on. In India, if you go 20, 30 miles away, you're in a different state and completely different language. And so you should consider internationalization is if you get students from all over the country, you're international. But they will not buy that argument, unfortunately. South Asian Quality Improvement System is based on EQUIS, but it is watered down in terms of international participation, international activities. SACS is a quality system supported by AMDISA, Association for Management Development Institutes in South Asia. Then there's the AMBA, Association of MBAs. Then the ACBSP, Association of Collegiate Business Schools and Programs. And then ICAM, International Assembly for Collegiate Business Schools. So there are a number of these. I'm not going to get into any one in particular, but I will talk a little bit about Indian accrediting agencies and international accrediting, some glaring differences. Okay, what are the quality parameters they look at? Most of them look at this, but maybe calling it differently, maybe combining some, but these are effectively the criteria. First is the context and mission, governance, strategy, and so on. So there may be different accreditation agencies may be using different nomenclature, but basically it's about that mission, governance, and strategy. And so on. Then you have about students and participants, executive education programs, and so on. You have faculty. So there'll be quality parameters. Within this, there'll be parameters. I won't get into too much details about those. Students and participants, and then they'll have, because those detailed ones will vary by the accrediting agency. Then you have the faculty, of course, quality of the faculty, their academic background, and things like that. Program quality measured in terms of how well the students are doing and Is the program well received by the students, student feedback, and so on. Research, development, and innovation is another quality parameter. Resources and administration, what resources the school has, how is the administration, is it well administered, and so on. Executive education is sometimes used, not all of them have executive education. Personal development is an important factor in many of the accreditations. What is the institute doing for people to develop their own, like faculty development programs and other programs that will help the staff also develop. And finally, more and more contribution community is becoming more and more important as a quality parameter. And many of the agencies now place quite a bit of emphasis on contribution to community. These are the typical quality parameters. So objectives of, so how is this assessed? There will be a peer review who visit the school and they assess the quality of the school's activities with reference to criteria. If you are, say, a particular accrediting agency you have applied, you have to submit a report about your school, what the activities and so on. Of course, each agency has a different set of rules and conditions. ASCSB is very elaborate and requires a lot of time and effort in writing your report, initial accreditation report and so on. So then once your report is accepted, then they will have a peer review team visit the institute. So the first step in this is that you have to, of course, for international agencies, you have to become a member. But in terms of NAC or NBA, you are a member already in some sense. You are being an institute. Then you have to submit your report, and once the report is accepted, typically the report is accepted, they'll form a peer review team, and the team will visit the institute and assess the quality of the school's activities in reference to criteria, and also obtain on-site information, clarification of various sources, because during the visit, they'll be talking to faculty, students, administrators, board members, and so on. So it's an elaborate 2 or 3 day process. Typically, it may be 2 days, sometimes in 3 days. And what they want is you would have submitted along with your for accreditation self-assessment report, assessing your activities and so on. And you might be making a lot of claims and so on that you have won this award, that award, and so on, or you've been rated or ranked by some ranking agencies and so on. So well, they want to confirm those. So they're not just as claims made, but they need confirmation. And then once it's all done, they'll prepare a report on the school and send it to the accreditation awarding committee. So there's a peer review done by the school's self-assessment report. Self-assessment report is a requirement to be sent to the agency in order for you to be considered for accreditation. Now, in AACSB, self-assessment report will come only after 2 or 3 years, because you have to make some initial reports and so on. They have to accept all that, and they have to verify some of those. Actual verification will be done by the peer review. Okay. So the peer review team, of course, people with a lot of experience in academic leadership and positions, they understand the accreditation philosophy, and they have experience in accreditation process. Typically, the team may consist 3 or 4 people, 2 or 3 may be senior people or a lot of experience, and 1 or 2 may be relatively new. They get acclimatized with the process and so on. In a sense, it's partly a learning process for them also, with the senior members guiding the team. So the senior members have a lot of experience in the accreditation process. And they're supposed to have fair play and integrity, because you don't want a team to come and biased with opinion, and they don't like the way the school is progressing or something like that. They have some axe to grind. You don't want such people. So some of the agencies, accrediting agencies, give you the option of saying whom some of whom you don't want some members, say from some institutions who are competitors to you and so on. there's a provision for doing that also, to indicate whom you don't want. But you can't say whom exactly you want. So, role of the peer review is read the self-assessment report carefully, visit the school maybe for 3 or 4 days, have open discussions and so on. See, the peer review team has two roles. One is the judging whether the self-assessment report is correct and how good you are and so on. Other is the consultancy role. The two roles the peer review team plays. One is the judgmental role, other is the consultancy role. Consultancy role is this kind of suggestions for quality improvement. It's basically an audit for the benefit of the school. And of course, they do a debriefing at the end. So telling the dean and the faculty, what they have found or what their thinking is in terms of how the school is progressing, what it is doing good, what it's not doing well, and so on. So then they prepare a competency report, and then this report is typically sent to the school to correct any factual errors. And then once that is done, they'll submit the report, and the accrediting awarding committee will then have to meet and take a final decision. The peer review team does not have the final word. They may recommend accreditation, not accreditation. Some have accreditation for 3 years, some option of 3 years or 5 years. So that depends upon the different accrediting agencies. But essentially, the peer review team is not the final word. Their recommendation is typically accepted by the accreditation awarding committee. I say typically, not necessarily always. There have been instances when the accreditation awarding committee overrules the peer review team recommendation. Okay, so final authority is the accreditation awarding committee. So just to indicate to you, this is by no means exhaustive, but there's some parameters and weightages. Mission, vision may be 100. What I want to indicate is this is what the NBA accreditation. Okay. This is slightly old, so it may not be exactly the same. They keep changing also. So don't take this as the most recent one. This is somewhat old. So mission I talked about is 100 points. Program outcome is 225 points. Program curriculum is 125. Student performance is 75. Faculty contributions, facilities and technical support, academic support units, teaching learning process, governance, institutional support and financial resources, and the continuous improvement and attainment of outcomes and so on. So these points, weightages are given, and the peer review team The peer review team visits, this is an NBA, so visits and will allot points to each, and if you score above that, you get a accreditation, otherwise you're not accredited. Sometimes they may also rate you A accreditation or A plus and so on. So the weightages may depend, might have changed, but the whole idea is the peer review team is supposed to give you marks for the various criteria. That you should keep in mind. Okay. So in India, what we do is various quality parameters, weights are given. And it's the same for all institutes. So what this means is it stifles unique positioning at different institutes. You want to be uniquely positioned, you don't want to do some of the things others are doing. What this says is if you want to get accreditation, you have to do all that they are saying and what NBA wants, and then something different that you want to do. So, if you think institutes want to position themselves differently, it becomes a little more difficult for those institutions because of the way the marks are assigned and so on. For instance, you might say, my emphasis is more on faculty contribution. You may want actually 300 points for that, but tough luck, you will get only 175. If you do a lot of faculty contribution, you get only 175. So the way it is, what I say is it stifles the peer review team gives them little room to understand, to actually give more weights and parameters that the institute is doing well. I suggested that you should give more leeway to the peer review team. When I was with the All India Board of Management Studies, and they told me, Professor, you don't understand. If you do that, to give more leeway to the peer review team, we'll end up with a lot of court cases. So we are worried about court cases, and so we have come up with all numbers. So supposedly numbers are more accurate or more appropriate. It's not very clear that that is indeed the case. And of course, numbers can be converted into A, B, or C. So I told you about this court cases. Internationally recognized accreditation is much more subjective. So they'll have some minimum standards over the several parameters to see that if the institute is actually meeting those minimum standards. But they give much more flexibility in arriving at the institute will be given full accreditation, or conditional accreditation, or no accreditation. So one institute may be very heavy on research. So they say they are more than meeting the standards. In terms of some of the other parameters, such as students, how well they are doing, they may not be as great in terms of the job opportunities and so on. So they may just say meet the standards or below the standards. So as long as an institute is doing well in many parameters and not doing well in only one, very few, then they may still give accreditation for 3 years or 5 years of the case. So they don't arrive at a single numerical score for an institution. We are all into number game, our review process, our thinking is all numbers because we're worried about court cases. So we don't want any subjectivity. Supposedly the marks are objective, but I think it was, I don't know who it was, I think it said, sometimes what counts cannot be counted, and what cannot be counted is what counts. So this is a problem with too much of numerical weightage and numerics into the accreditation process. So of course, as I mentioned, peer review team recommendation is looked at by another committee and may even be overturned, but that is rare, but it's done not 0 times. It's been done. Okay. So we have 2 contrasting approaches, you might say, to accreditation. Indian approach, numerical score, and the letter grade perhaps based on the single score. Other approach is more subjective in terms of arriving at whether a particular parameter is being evaluated exceed standard, meet standard, below standard, and see how many of them are exceed standards and meet standard. If too many are below standards, you may not accredit and so on. Big difference is no single numerical score or letter grade is accredited or not accredited. So maybe for the categorization, 5 years or 3 years will tell you. You are given accreditation for 5 years, you are doing better than someone who has been accredited only for 3 years and so on. So this you should keep in mind. There's a fundamental difference in the 2 approaches to accreditation. As an institution, we should be aware of this. Finally, before I end up, I want to talk a little bit about ratings and rankings. That's different from accreditation. Accreditation is conformance to quality, conformance to what you are saying, whether you are delivering what you are saying, and whereas ratings and rankings are, you are numerical, you are number 1, number 2, or number 3. We all like. I also wanted to say, you look at even accreditation, look at the quality parameters, for instance. It is multivariate in a sense. You see, you have several different quality parameters. All that we are doing is trying to do, at least NBA, is reduce all this to one single score. It's actually multi-dimensional assessment, and then you reduce all those to one single score. Whereas you are international, they don't reduce it to one single score, but they look at these different dimensions and say, in how many of them you are doing very well, how many you are doing okay, how many you are not doing well, and then take a call on based on that. I think you should keep in mind, whenever you want to reduce a multidimensional problem into a single score, you could have lots of issues and problems. But that is finished in India by somehow thinking these weightages will take care of that and the numbers will take care of that. And they don't always. They may sometimes be helpful, but it's not always the case. Okay. So rating and rankings are different because they will want to rate you, compare you with other schools. Whereas in accreditation, it is not so much comparison. You may compare with other schools to see relatively how you are doing with competition and so on. But whether you are actually delivering what you are promising. So sort of you may say something like golf, you're playing yourself, and what score you get depends on you. Okay. Whereas if you go into a competitive one, now your score is important, but other scores are important, more important. Because you might have done well in terms of your score, but if others have done better, then your ranking will be lower. So nowadays, ranking has become a big thing all over the world, not just in India. You get business magazines, newspapers, and even academicians have started. But as I told you, it's a multi-factor analysis is required. So what some of the academics do is rate or rank subject-wise or department-wise. So finance department, how is rated from different schools for operations. So it is saying that we don't want to do a multi-dimensional problem. We look at only one dimension, which is in terms of the finance. Of course, within that itself, we could have problems. Different factors such as research, teaching, and so on. But at least when you look at department-wise, it's a little bit easier than looking at the institution-wise. So I did not go into details. Accreditation can be for the whole institute or can be one program only. So they assess the program only and they are accredited. So basically, as I mentioned, it's multi-attribute problem with specific parameters. And you can have the rating ranking of Indian schools separately or in the Asia Pacific region or worldwide and so on. So you have different ratings, rankings have become ratings sometimes are not exactly rankings. Ratings are saying you're in the A category or B category or C category and so on. You have this rating of journals where you publish and so on, A star, A and so on. Like that, institutions also may be rated as A star, A and so on. Ratings are basically you divide the institution into 3 or 4 buckets basically, A star, A, B and so on. As rankings will actually tell you 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. People like rankings because they want to say, whether you're number 1 or number 2 and so on. Rating will just say A star. But I don't know, I feel ratings are better in that sense than rankings. So some of these are acknowledgments, some of those presentations are used slides by authors in the workshops conducted by MDSA. And thank you, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you have. Nandagopal?
Yeah.
Okay, Narayan Reddy.
Good afternoon, sir.
Yeah.
So I am Narayan Reddy on this side. So I'm very, very happy to refresh ourselves with your inputs. You have given elaborate macro picture of accreditation and quality parameters for management institutions at the national and international level. Of course, as it is, there are no questions or observations as such. But what is my observation? If possible, you can also throw some light on this. Compared to the international institutions, the number of institutions in the country preferring the accreditation processes are very, very low. Though regulatory body is specifically telling or advising, sometimes are insisting that all the institutions have to go for accreditation. But still, very few institutions are practicing or adapting this. This is one observation. The second and most important thing is the benefits associated with accreditation is one of the important point that many institutions are having some apprehension. Though no doubt, the accredited institutions will offer better quality management education is there. But more than that, institutions, after going through laborious process for accreditation process, at the end, the benefits that they expect, particularly at least from agencies or regulatory agencies of the country, in giving priority to sanction some research projects and other benefits are also limited. So what do you think about this, sir?
Okay, let me add something for you, first of all. Now, are you interested in giving quality education? That's the issue. Many times we say, yes, we want to, but we don't want to do the things that are necessary for quality education. And then the issue is, how do you know you are delivering quality education? Otherwise, everybody thinks that. So this was the case even at IIMs and so on, not about quality. They used to say, we don't need any international recognition.
Yeah.
We are doing well. Why do we have to worry about that and so on? Along came ISB and got ranked, and all things changed. It's not that they could not do it, but the attitude is a problem. It's the same problem with many institutions. Attitude is, why do we need all this accreditation? Why do we need, we are okay and so on. But if you want a quality education, you want to give quality education. And sometimes people just talk, we want to do that, but they're not really interested. This research is one thing. Everybody says we want to do a lot of research, but they don't do anything to promote research, to evaluate research and so on. So it is a question of what you want exactly to do. If there is a will, there is a way. But coming to your point, if I've been saying this for AIMS, I told Nandagopal several times. See, some of the institutes, I wouldn't say a lot, but a substantial number of institutes are way down in terms of the accrediting, possibility of accrediting. So if you look at NAC or NBA and so on, you say, oh, it takes so long and why we have to worry about all that. But if you want to give quality education, that's the ultimate goal, but you must have some intermediate goals. In 1 or 2 years, we will be good and so on. Like in the US, they used to have, I don't know if they do, regional accreditations and so on. You need some quality improvement systems instead of calling accreditation. So it is recognized that you're improving. Otherwise, everybody says, yes, we are doing well and so on. So a recognition at an intermediate level would be most appropriate, but I don't know how you would do it, so that those institutions which are lagging way behind can aspire and say, okay, this is something we can reach in 1 or 2 years. You give something, which will take 4 or 5 years to reach, and you don't know what is going to happen and what are the benefits and so on. But if you find something that you can improve the quality and you can achieve that in 2 years or something like that, 2-3 years. And then once you achieve that, then you can aspire to it. So what I'm trying to say is you need intermediate goals, and if AIMS can provide a framework for doing this, a lot of institutions, like you said, so many, 3,500, the bottom 1,000 are institutes or more can benefit from that. Not necessarily all, some may not be interested at all. Those who are interested, out of the 1,000 bottom ones, maybe 300, 400 are sincerely interested, but to see this as a Herculean task to get accreditation because it takes so long and so many years.
Yes, sir. That your point of related to the intermediate level quality improvement steps, actually, this is a very, in fact, it is a to some extent it is a new thing, and if AIMS can take it up and promote and create some awareness about this instead of straight away going for the ultimate goals, definitely it is going to help the lower rank institutions in the country, because of the 3,300 or plus, more than 2,000 institutions at the bottom of the pyramid. And as you suggested, this is definitely going to help the smaller institutions to have intermediate quality goals, and based on that, they can move forward. So other interesting point is...
Related to that, can I add something?
Please, sir.
unfortunately, most of us are interested only in the top institutes. This is good for the top institute, not good for the country as such. For the country, you want to develop, you should develop all those not so good or the bottom 1,000, bottom 1,000, maybe 200, 300 may not be interested. Forget about it. At least if you develop the 500, 700 of them, you will gain a lot. So it's good for the country. I'll tell you my experience. When I was in Bangalore, I used to attend CII meetings. They like to come and give talks to at schools and so on. But most of them will go to only IIMs and other well-known schools. I used to tell them, why don't you go to some schools, in and around Bangalore, which is not so well recognized and so on. But none of them would do them. In fact, I told the ISB student when they graduated, they said, we want to do something for management. I said, again, same problem. You all want to go to IIMs or ISBs. Why don't you go and look at schools in and around Hyderabad where they are not so well recognized? So they said, yes, we will do. They went there. They came back after some time, said, problem is the faculty needs a lot of orientation. So I said, okay, you do that, talk to them and see what is to be done. But that's about all. Nothing happened for them. What I'm saying is, we all want to migrate towards the top end of the school spectrum. We ignore the bottom, but this is maybe good for the top schools, good for your own thinking. But if you want the country to develop, those bottom schools also have to develop. But again, I want to say, some may not be interested, you might have to ignore, but there will be quite a few who are interested and they can benefit. Sorry, that's what I want.
Yes, sir, yes. That is the wonderful idea, sir, that because if we help the level 2 and level 3 or lower rank institutions, the entire country will get benefited out of the quality management education. That's definitely good, sir. And the next important thing was the discussion is that the multidimensional assessment system. Actually, many institutions are not very strong in all areas of parameters. Out of 1,000, what you have suggested, the research, faculty contributions, the placements, the governance, etc. All institutions are not very strong on all the areas. So as a result, what is happening is average level of quality is lower than the expected. In that case, one issue has come for the discussion. What is wrong if we accredit an institution based on the research, based on the faculty, or based on the programs actually? Because in international level, some institutions are very strong in some programs. Like Carnegie Mellon is very strong in one area, like that. If we accredit institution based on one dimension and give a rank to, not a rank actually, accredit that particular program, what is wrong in that? So just it is a vague idea, just I'm raising it because for a period of time. Yeah, sir.
Let me try to address that. You see, when you have multiple parameters, you must have some minimum standards for all the parameters. Otherwise, if you say I'm very good in that, I see, for instance, I'm good in research, I don't care about teaching, you won't get students and you will have lots of problems. In fact, when I was a student at Carnegie Mellon, we used to joke, one of the professors was not teaching, he just made the students give presentations. This is a PhD level course. Somebody suggested that we should go and talk to the dean, he said that he's not teaching and so on. And somebody else said, you know what happened last year? The same professor was teaching. They went to the dean. Dean was, wanted to know who are the good teachers. So they said X, Y, Z. And so next day, the dean walked into the office of X, Y, and Z and said, how come you're not spending enough time on research? So teaching, they're good teachers, they don't do research. That's right. So I don't think you can ignore, but you may, your minimum standard may be a little lower. I mean, it may not be an absolute minimum, but it may be, something close to that. Close to that, then you may ignore that. You can do that. But also nowadays you have program accreditations. Not necessarily. It's institutional accreditation is a little more complicated, multidimensional. Program accreditations will take care of that.
Yes, that's
That's
the
my-
point actually. Yeah, this is a valid point. If some programs are accredited, and the institute also can promote itself that its programs are very, very strong in terms of knowledge creation. And all said and done, sir, in the Indian environment, uh, for example, the then Prime Minister Manmohan Singh once said, though IIMs have been established and they are there for the decades, and particularly they could not create a niche for Indian management education. Of course, that is a different story. Indian management education, like American management and Japanese management, we could not create an Indian management education. Is this the challenge because that is not part of the accredited system, or the focus is little different from the international approach?
It is challenge, it is a problem. See, you have to define what is Indian management system. There should be agreement, and the NAC and the NBA, when they do that, they must include those as parameters and so on as a part of the accrediting agencies, the accreditation. And then you promote that. It will take time, but once you have some quality parameters, how to measure those, and how, I say one problem in all this new, everybody says we are doing well. Okay, we are doing all that. So is there a good measurement system? So if you come up with a good measurement, you should think and come up with good measurement system. I'm not saying there is no measurement system. There will be a measurement system. But we stop with saying you should promote, but no, what is the next step? Next step is, what is a measurement system? What are the things? How will you go about? And slowly you have to do it, and it will take time. But we don't follow the next steps. That is the problem.
Well, yeah, thank you very much, sir. And from AIMS side, for example, AIMS for quite some time is working on the lines of accrediting the institutions. You have already touched one important point that AIMS can focus on promoting the accreditation process for in the short run areas like intermediate level objectives, realization, etc. What is your suggestions for AIMS? How it can proceed further in accrediting the institutions? Because we are seriously thinking to promote from AIMS side to accredit the institutions.
Yeah, you see, as I said, you have to be a little bit clear. It's a tough call, but I think you need to make it, because there are lots of accreditations in the international. You have SACs, you have NBA, and so on. They are all fairly good and established accreditation. Do you want AIMS to give one more of those and so on? My answer would be there are already enough of those. Why you want one more? On the other hand, what I talked about, if you can create something that will help the bottom institutions to reach the next level and so on. So some sort of, I don't know what you would call, intermediate level kind of accreditation or something. You need to give some thought what exactly you will do. You will do a good contribution to the society. Whereas if you make one more, you can make one more, and that is what most people would want, because everybody is interested in top. Everybody wants to be at the top. They're not worried about what is happening at the bottom. So AIMS can create one and so on, but you'll be competing with NAC, NBA, and so on. And you don't know how well you will do. You have to spend a lot of resources and so on. And what is the benefits? I'm not so sure. But if you do something, what I was suggesting earlier, the benefits will be enormous. But the AIMS can get credit, but it won't give you sort of an international recognition or something like that. But it's a good contribution to society, I would say. So you have to take what you want to do. Of course, somebody said let's do both, but both means you need a lot of resources and so on. But what is needed, according to me, is the second one, what I said about upgrading the lower ranked institutions.
Yes, of course. Thank you, sir. And maybe there are no observations in the chat box, but that's why I'm raising certain small observations for the discussion purpose. And see, another thing is the cost of accreditation. This is also a very interesting issue. For many small lower ranked institutions are not able to afford the cost factor, one thing. And second thing, if the regulator can interfere in filling the gap of the cost factor, this may increase the more number of institutions participating in the accreditation process. This is just a loud thinking from my side.
No, the cost is reduced, of course. Yes, there might be more will come, but I think cost is a factor. But for accreditation within India, say NAC and BA, I don't think the cost is so high compared to, say, when you talk about international accreditation, I agree. But national accreditations, there is some cost, I know that. But again, the cost is seen as too much because they are too far below and the cost is into too much and they don't see the benefits. They may not even be able to reach there. That is where, again, I'm going back to my intermediate level, that the cost will be lower and they're reachable and so on, and you take it in stages. So, but you're right, now international accreditations can be very costly and people may not see the benefits.
That is what actually I strongly feel that if we can, as a AIMS advocacy role in suggesting the AICTE or UGC and come into the picture and fill the gap in accrediting the institutions. Because on one side, regulators in the country says that the institutions have to go for accreditation. On the other side, they don't pay much financial support. So I feel that if we AIMS board can suggest some measures to the AICTE and UGC, of course, the institutions may be there, may not be there after some time, that we don't know. There are ifs and buts, but still, I think that we can play a little active role in creating awareness among the regulators to help the lower rank institutions to go for accreditation process. This is what I think so, sir. And I think if the time is also running out. And any last words, sir, from your side?
No, nothing. I enjoyed. I hope those who are got some benefit. But I always like to say, if there are no questions, either everything is understandable, everything is fine, or alternatively everything is so confusing that you don't want to ask the questions. So I take it as a former and not the latter. I'll close with that. Okay. Thank you.
Actually, thank you, sir. In fact, this session is more than 1 hour we could conduct, and more than 100 participants still on the active mode in listening to you. And you have given the clear picture of the quality and accreditation process and why quality is needed, why accreditation is needed, what are the processes that are there to improve the quality from the stage of governance to involvement, the input process, facilities, output, measurement issues, benchmarking aspects, the peer reviews, etc., and also the specific benefits. I'm sure that all the participants who are actually listening to you, they are certainly have certain takeaways from this particular session. And I sincerely thank you, sir, for accepting the invitation, and you played a big role in promoting the quality education. And this is the first knowledge sharing session that the AIMS is organizing in this academic year. I am sure that in the days to come, every week, we are going to have the knowledge sharing sessions. I request all the participants who have actually participated in this particular session and also others, please join as and when we organize a knowledge series sessions and get benefit out of participation. I sincerely thank all the participants for their active participation. And I also thank the central office at Hyderabad and also our other office in Pune for organizing this particular program and extending the technical and management support to run this particular series. Thank you very much, sir. So let us hope we can meet again and again and listen to you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to run the program. Thank you, sir. Thank you.